And one of you will indeed stand before Allah without there being a barrier that will be a veil between Allah and him, nor will there be an interpreter interpreting for him. He will say, Did I not give you wealth? He, the slave, will say, Yes. He will say, Did I not send a messenger to you? He will say, Yes. He, the slave, will then look to his right, seeing nothing but the hellfire. Then he will look to his left, seeing nothing but the hellfire. Then let one of you ward off the hellfire, even if he does so with a part of a date, and if he cannot find a piece of a date to give in charity, then with a good word related it in his Sahih. Safwan said, I was holding the hand of Ibn Umar when a man came and said, What did you hear the Messenger of Allah say regarding the Najwa, private discourse on the day of resurrection? Ibn said, I heard the Messenger of Allah say, Indeed, Allah brings the believer near and then places his cover over him, thus covering him from the people, and he makes him acknowledge his sins, saying to him, Do you acknowledge such and such sin? When Allah makes him acknowledge his sins, and when he sees it in himself that he is destroyed, Allah will say, I indeed covered it for you in the world, and I give it for you today. Then he will be given the book of his good deeds with his right. As for the disbelievers and the hypocrites, those that witness will say, These are the ones who lied against their Lord. No doubt the curse of Allah is on the Zalimun, polytheists, wrongdoers, oppressors. It is also related in Bukhari and Muslim from the Hadith of Qatada. Abu related that the Prophet said, Allah will say on the day of resurrection, O son of Adam, I made you to ride on horses and camels. I made you marry woman, and I made you lead and tarba, achieve wealth as well as obedience from others. So where is your gratefulness for that? In a section of a long hadith, Abu related that the Prophet said, Then Allah will meet the slave and say, So speak, did I not honor you, make you leader, make you marry, make you in control over horses and camels? And did I not leave you to lead and tarba, achieve wealth as well as obedience from others? He will say, Yes, O my Lord. He will say, Did you realize that you would meet me? He will say, No. Allah will say, I indeed forget you as you forgot me. He will then meet a second slave and say, So speak, did I not honor you, make you marry, make you lead, and make you have control over horses and camels? And did I not leave you to lead and tarba, achieve wealth as well as obedience from others? He will say, Yes. Allah will say, Did you realize that you would meet me? He will say, No, O my Lord. He will say, I indeed forgot you, just as you forgot me. Then he will meet a third slave and say the same to him. He, the slave, will say, O my Lord, I believe in you, in your book, and in your messenger. And I prayed, fasted, and gave charity. And he will praise himself with the best that he is able to praise himself with. He will say, Then it is right over here. Then it will be said, Now we will send our witness against you. he, the man, will say to himself, who is the one that will testify against me? Then his mouth will be sealed, and it will be said to his thigh, to his flesh, and to his bones, and then his thigh, his flesh, and his bones will enunciate his deeds that were perpetrated by him, and that is the hypocrite, and that is the one that Allah will be angry with. Then a caller will call out, let every nation follow what it used to worship. Muslim, and we will mention the hadith later on in its entirety, related the same from both Abu and Abu, from who both imputed it to the Messenger of Allah. Anas said, we were with the Messenger of Allah when he laughed. He said, do you know what I am laughing about? We said, Allah and His Messenger know best. The Prophet then said, from the discourse of the slave with his Lord, for the slave will say, O my Lord, did you not tujirni a covenant to prevent and defend me from wrongdoing? Allah will say, yes. He will say, then I do not permit upon myself except a witness from me. Allah will say, you are enough of a witness against yourself today, along with the honorable inscribers, angels, as witnesses. Allah will seal his mouth shut and will say to his limbs, speak, then they will pronounce his deeds, after which he will be permitted to speak again. He will then say, farness for you, he is addressing his limbs, and remoteness from you again. Addressing his limbs, it was for you that I would struggle. Muslim and Al-Bukhari related this hadith, and the wording of this narration is of the latter. Abu related that the Messenger of Allah said on the